some artists, or maybe a lot of artists, they write their best songs maybe while being heartbroken. How's that for you?
Some artists write the best songs when being heartbroken. I don't at all. I write the worst songs when I'm heartbroken. I write my best songs when I'm in a crush or when I'm falling in love. I don't know why. It's the same on my first album, you know. That I wrote Love Today in the same kind of frenzy and that ecstasy of a crush that I wrote the song The Origin of Love in. Like, they're the same kind of rush of adrenaline. And I guess it was pretty heartbroken writing the second, and although it's a beautifully crafted record, it doesn't have that urgency of, you know, I have to communicate this to you. It's a bit like, you can listen if you want to. And so subsequently it's not as, you know, it doesn't grab you by the throat.
Yeah, do you feel that you have more a positive message you want to get out than maybe a self-pity message? Or
I have a message of affirmation, positivity, and yeah, so subsequently it's a hell of a lot more joyful than being heartbroken, because heartbreak is not, it's not the pity that for me is destructive in my work. It's more like the insecurity that comes with heartbreak. And when you write a song and when you stand on stage, if you feel insecure, everything just falls apart. You don't take risks in saying, you know, I always say, like, I worked with a songwriter, and he always said to me, the one thing that you always have to remember when you write a song is that you have to dare to suck. You have to dare to be terrible, because it's only in allowing yourself to maybe be terrible that you can come out with something that turns out great.
So what was maybe your first song for the record, or maybe the love that you had during this record, the personal love for somebody?
I hadn't written a record in a year and a half, and I hadn't written a song, and I had terrible writer's block, and I knew that I needed to make a third album that was like really good and that was really fresh, that sounded like, whoa, like that would make you listen. That was the desire that I had, and how to get there I had no idea. Then, you know, I had some awful things happen. I had a terrible breakup, and then I had an accident in my family with my sister. She had a very traumatic accident. She fell out of a window, and I was there, and then some months passed, and I fell in love, and from that came the first song, The Origin of Love. Ironically, with my sister's accident and her being in hospital, with this relationship that I had just started, instead of hanging around, as soon as I felt like that sensation that I was starting to live again, I escaped. I packed my suitcases and I left, and I went to Montreal to work with Nick Littlemore from Empire of the Sun.
Was it random, or was it already something that you discussed with him, or something you had in your mind to do that?
I had no idea in my head that I would run away to make an album, and I had no idea that I wouldn't come home for 7 months. I spoke to Nick Littlemore in the afternoon. 6 hours later, I bought myself a ticket for the next morning to go to Montreal, because that's where he was working. And I went from the airport in Montreal to the studio, and after a year and a half of not writing a single song, I wrote The Origin of Love.
Did you have the feeling that you needed somebody to maybe pull you out of your writer's block, or out of this period that was hard for you to write?
I didn't need somebody to pull me out of writer's block. I needed someone to have fun with. I'm a solo artist, I'm not in a band, and so sitting in front of the piano just brought back all this habitual kind of thought process from, you know, even from like my days of songwriting at school. And so subsequently I needed to walk in, and I walked into the studio in Montreal, and Nick Littlemore had rented 23 keyboards and 7 basses and all these drum samplers, and he was jumping around like going, and we can play on this and we can play on that, and then there was another young bassist there, and we just hit it off because it was fun. It was collective.
But wasn't it intimidating then, maybe, that he expected so much that he rented already 23 keyboards or synthesizers for you?
I'm one of those bizarre people, in the same way that I write terrible songs when I'm heartbroken and only songs when I'm in love. In the same way, I am much better when people take a leap of faith and expect from me something than when they expect nothing. I function on opposites. In the arts or in music normally, people are better when they're heartbroken, and people are better when they walk in and there's no pressure. I guess because I started doing this when I was 11 years old, the pressure is something that I function very well in.